Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the application writing module. So, application writing is one of the most important parts of EYP because you'd like to be at a session as a chair, as a jury, as a media, as anything. Well, you would need to have written an application first and sent it in. So, for this, we're just going to discuss, the best ways to do an application and the tips and tricks and everything you need to know.
Yeah, so basically we'll be dividing this into basically talking about the selection panels, how to prepare for an app, and the different types of questions you might come across or you will come across, and different kind of tips and tricks in your application writing that are good to keep in mind while planning and while writing, and also kind of some desired qualities of different kind of roles in EYP. Like, for example, what are people usually looking for when they are calling for media team members, let's say. So let's start with the selection panel. So the selection panel can consist of different people. It really depends on the NC, honestly, and the also kind of the role that they are calling for. But usually the head organizers are there, and again, like depends on what team it is. If it's, for example, vice president panel, then the president will be there. If it's media team member panel or EA panel, the editor will be there, and so on. And there is also always an NC board member. It can be the HR, the president, like kind of whoever the NC has appointed to be part of the panel. And there might be also any other people. It really depends. Like sometimes vice presidents attend chairs panels and so on. So it's really kind of up to the team leaders and up to the NC. So kind of do your research on who could potentially be on the panel, so you kind of know who you're writing your app to. And also, again, different NCs have different methods of doing panels. Some do like a selection sheet where they write down comments and then they discuss them in a call, or really there's different kind of methods of actually conducting the panel. And there's also different criteria for different NCs for different roles. So some NCs, for example, might have this rule of when they call for jury members, you have to have been in an academic team position before, as an example. So different NCs kind of have different criteria. Like some of them might not even have that rule, and so on.
And also just in the selection panel, you know, your application makes up most of sort of the decision that the selection panel make, but they also look at other things like your evaluations, and they could ask people that you've worked with, hey, what was it like working with David, or what was it like working with Mira? And they could take in kind of your character from other perspectives. So there is also more to just the application, but for now we'll focus on the application.
So one quote I always like to bring up is that by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So basically, when you're writing an app, you always have to prepare if you want like a greater chance of getting selected, I would say. If you write a very just last minute app out of nowhere, I mean, it really depends. Like you can get selected like that, but if you want to increase your chances of getting selected, I would say that preparing and really having like a plan and a good structure for your app is kind of key to making it clear and not making it messy and so on. So David, would you like to talk about how to prepare?
Yes. So, how to prepare for your application. So, when you're writing your plan or when you're thinking about answering the questions, know what you can offer. So, kind of sell yourself to the selection panel. Make it sound like this session like wouldn't be as good if you weren't there, and do that by talking about your skills, your experience, you as a team member, like your personality. So you can talk about your experience and be like, yeah, I'm like a super experienced in this role, so like it would be great to have me at the session. Well, obviously don't say that, but that's what you want the selection panel when they read your application. You want them to read it like, oh, this person is so skilled. They know exactly what they're doing. They have a lot of experience. They're a really good team member. We have to have them at the session. So also, do your research on the session. So, what's the theme or the motto of the session? So you could look at that. Who's in the leadership of the session? Who do you have to impress? So, there's no point like trying to impress the president if you're going to be a media team member. You need to kind of tailor your answer to the person as well. Do you have a vision, new ideas for innovation? Selection panels always love the idea of innovation, something new that shows, oh wow, this person really thought about this. Um, is there a vision booklet from each team leader? So you might look at the vision booklet, especially for, say, media, and see, oh, we're looking for two EAs. One of the EAs would be in charge of videography, and one of them would be in charge of social media. And you know exactly kind of, well, this is what the selection panel wants, or this is what the editor wants. How can I tailor to one of those? So you might prefer social media, so you might talk about a lot about social media in your application. And that's perfect. So just tailoring your answer to the vision or to the theme of the session. What are the application questions? So when you're preparing it, you obviously need to know what you have to answer. So you can look through the application questions and see what one suits you and what you can prepare for there. And then also, are you ready? Like, are you ready to apply to this session? Are you ready to do that role?
And then a bit like generally speaking about apps, just like be honest in your apps. That is one very key thing that I always like to emphasize. Like, don't sell yourself to be this god if you're not, which I don't know if you are, but who knows. Um, just like be very honest with your both your strengths and your weaknesses. Like, don't try to do this whole thing of giving a weakness that is actually like a strength, but you phrase it as a weakness type of thing. Because like you don't really get much out of that. Like when people ask for your weaknesses, they genuinely want to know what your actual weaknesses are. So just be honest. And this is also because during sessions, when you're working with certain people that you have selected, if they turn out to be completely different from what you expected based from the app, you're going to be, I don't know, disappointed, or then you don't know how to work with them, or maybe your vision for the team kind of flops or whatever. So just be honest. Also be concise, understandable, specific. Basically just have a clear structure for your app and don't ramble on too much. And basically just have a few key points and elaborate on those, and don't make it like a whole book, basically. And you can say something in one sentence and not in like 10. It really depends. Then also just be realistic. Again, it goes kind of with the be honest kind of spectrum, but also just like if you have a new idea for innovation, let's say, don't like give an idea that is like fully impossible to ever execute, because you're gonna do nothing with that. So just be realistic with your app as well. Also learn how to write properly. It might sound a bit harsh, but just make sure that you can like have proper like sentences, you have punctuation, you again use the correct language. You can check like on Grammarly or whatever to see kind of your grammar and your language, and you can have someone else that is maybe a native speaker or like who is a strong English speaker if you're a bit unsure yourself, to kind of check your language of the app and so on. But basically it's just for the selection panel to understand what you want to convey with your app. Also actually answer the questions properly. Again, it might sound a bit harsh, but it is about basically when you see a question, answer just that question and don't go around answering a million other questions. Like stay very focused on what the question is and answer that, and don't go around talking about other things that are completely unrelated, because with a question, the leader of the team is they have a clear vision of what they want from that answer and what kind of qualities they want to see from that answer and so on. And if you don't answer the question, it's going to be a bit pointless, or you're not really getting anything out of it type of thing. Also, be original. You can be a bit extra. Like, I mean, anything you can do to stand out is always good. I mean, in selection panels, when you go back and look at all the apps and you're like, oh, that was that person who did this like um, extra thing, and you might remember them a bit better. So you can do poems, you can do videos, you can do Spark Adobe pages, you can do some creative writing. Um, Literally whatever you think that kind of fits the application. Like don't do it without any purpose type thing. But if it really suits kind of the type of question and you feel like it goes well with what you want to say, then sure. For one app, when I applied to David's session, actually, I did a little creative writing piece in one of my apps, and apparently that was like that stood out. So again, like you can do stuff like that too to stand out. Also, do not repeat yourself, please. If you have an answer that is 250 words and it's just saying the same thing over and over again, there's no real new kind of content. Then again, you could have written that in one sentence. Like it's no point rambling on for words and words, and the leadership is going to think that, oh, this is like a good like long good answer. There's going to be a lot in here, and then it's just the same thing over and over again. Um, if you have nothing to say, again, that's kind of a sign of you not being well prepared and well having a good plan of what you want to say. So have like a few key points that you want to bring up and not just one. Um, if you only have one, then you kind of have to think about that a bit more. Also, do not be vague and give concrete examples. Don't just say that I'm good at time management and leave it as that. You also have to, like, the like policy that I like to follow is usually answer what, how, and why, or what, why, and how, but still like answer all those three questions. Don't only answer the what, the I am good at time management. Also answer, oh, I'm good at time management because of this and this and this, and you give like a concrete example of that the panel can see that, oh, they actually are good at time management because of this example. Um, and again, like there's no one size fits all. Tailor your application to a specific session. So basically, um, don't go around copy pasting your answer from previous sessions. I know that is something that is kind of done. Um, and even if you take inspiration from your old answers, you can do that, but make sure to always tailor it to the session. So, for example, tailor it to the session vision and so on, so that people see that it's actually your session that they're applying to and not just like going around the members platform and shooting an application in every direction to kind of just get selected to one type of thing.
I just want to build on the one section you said of giving concrete answers. I think this is so, so, so important. Not just within like, I am a reliable person, and then you just don't say anything else. Like, obviously, the selection panel wants to know how you're reliable. Like, what's an example to show you're reliable? But also, if you're, this is the one that like I always see, is if you're gonna say, oh, I want to bring innovations to the session, like mention an innovation you want to bring to the session, give examples of everything you say, because without that, it's kind of just empty words. Like anyone can say they want to bring innovations to the session, but only you are the one who's going to say, "Oh, I want to bring innovations to the session. I want to have a session website that has announcement photos for all of the teams on it, and I want to do this and I want to do this." So make sure you are giving the concrete examples because it will make you stand out so much more than anyone else. And in a selection panel, as we talked about earlier, you want to stand out. So yeah.
Would you also like to continue?
Yeah, okay. So the general questions, so these are like the most common questions you'll see on an application. The motivation question. So, like what motivates you to apply for Enhance? So for this, like, please don't copy and paste the same answer for motivation all the time. Again, as we said, read the vision, read the theme, be original, just talk about, like, be honest. Why are you applying to this session? Um, so that's good. Vision questions that might ask you something about your vision for the session. Um, and for that, always like read the session vision and read how it relates to you and then answer through that. Personal questions. So there could be more personal questions in the application. Again, not a copy paste thing. It's more of a answer, like, again, take into the generally speaking section of things. So like, be honest, be concise, be realistic, don't repeat yourself, etc. So session questions, so there might be specific questions to the session. So I know, like, when digital sessions started, there was a lot of digital format related questions. And again, just think about it. These are the best ones, I think, to prepare and plan out, because there are so many different answers you could give. But again, just be yourself. Make sure that even though all these questions are quite general, make sure that the selection panel can, like, see what kind of person you are through this. Because you're really trying to show off who you are and yourself and your personality. Now, creative questions. This might be, well, the one I would always think of is, please introduce yourself using a format of your choice. That is always a big one. For me, when I see that question, I would always think of a video, just making a video, um, because videos stand out in a selection panel. I would never really do just written text unless it was some kind of different form of written text, like a poem or a short story or some form of creative writing piece. Obviously, if you're only applying to the session very, very, very late and very close to the deadline, I have seen a lot of written text before, which is fine. But if you're given the opportunity to have a creative question, be creative, do something original, be different. So we said earlier, poems, videos, Spark Adobe pages, creative writing pieces, they are super original, they are different, they stand out. Preference question, so it could be that there are like 3 regionals at the same time, and they're asking which one you would prefer to do. That's fine. And then email contact information, so just the basic. Please provide your email for the selection panel or your phone number or something like that.
And then there is like role specific questions. So the questions are going to be different for whatever role team you're applying to, obviously, because the teams basically just do different things and you need different skill sets for the different roles. So, for example, for VPs, EAs, any sort of team leading position, you are often asked about your leadership style to for the pressy or editor or whoever to see kind of how you lead a team and how you are as a leader, and if you kind of fit the vision of what they want to do within that team. Also, for chairs, there might be some sort of topic proposal question. So they might ask you, oh, propose a topic that you would like to share during the session. And there you can be very creative and bring some topic that you've maybe never seen in a EYP session before, maybe something you've seen and you've liked, and maybe tailor that a bit. But yeah, just kind of go off your own interests. For organizers, there might be model situations, or for example, there might be an example of a crisis. Um, the food doesn't arrive on time in a physical session. What do you do? Type of thing. And you have to kind of provide the panel with an answer about how you deal with certain situations and how you act in crises or whatever. Then for EAs and TMs, there might be, again, more creative questions. Again, the one that David mentioned about the introductions, but also the various other ones. They usually ask for your portfolio with your past like project that can be both inside EYP or outside of EYP. Um, and kind of also sometimes they ask you for project ideas. So what is one project that you would want to work on during the session? Those might be some questions that come up within the media team
Yeah. And
application.
to talk more about the media team questions, from my perspective, what I would notice is, if you're applying to be a media team member at like a regional session, usually they wouldn't ask for your portfolio, because like this is where a lot of first timers would try and be media, so they wouldn't expect you to have a portfolio. But if you're going to be an editorial assistant, you will more than likely always see a portfolio question because they expect, oh, they've probably been a media team member a few times before, I'd like to see their work. In terms of the creative questions, like you can get the most random things like um, something about if you were a book or a song or a musical piece, like what one would you be? Or pick a song that makes you feel inspired and explain why. Write a memory from your childhood that makes you the way you are today. But then you'll obviously have the more serious questions. Like, to me, this is one that I see quite a lot, and it's what is, in your opinion, the purpose of media in EYP? Or what is the role of a journalist at a session? And this is a really, really important question because it tells a lot about you and your understanding of the role. And if you write down an answer and the selection panel are like, wow, this person really doesn't understand the role, it will significantly decrease your chances of being selected. So, as well as that, you kind of need to understand what you're applying to fully. And that's just something to note. But you could be asked other things like, um, how do you understand the theme of this session and how will you process that in your media output? Or what goals do you have for the session in terms of weaknesses and strengths within EYP media? So there's a huge variety of questions you can be asked. And again, it's just preparing your answer, knowing what you want to say, being honest, and trying to be creative as well. So motivation questions. Example, what do you want to achieve at XY? Yeah, so exactly what I was saying earlier, just like what's your goals for this session? When you're doing it, have two or three points in mind. So two or three things you want to achieve. So in terms of media, it could be I want to improve my videography skills. I want to try projects as part of a group and not just individual projects. After each one of them, add two or three more sentences further describing the point and say how it goes along with your prior experience. So if you want to do pair projects, you could talk about how, when you've been a media team member in the past, you have not got the opportunity to do pair projects, and because of that, you felt kind of isolated within the media team. But now you want to do pair projects because you want to feel more of a sense of belonging in the team, and you think by working with other people, that would be the best way to do it. And also, you could work with someone who has good videography skills, and you could learn from them, etc. And maybe if you have any good skills like graphic design that they want to learn from, it would be a really nice mutual learning opportunity. So explain, why this point is beneficial to the team, like why what you want to achieve will actually help the team overall as well. And again, the what, how, why. What do you want to achieve? How do you want to achieve it? Why do you want to achieve it? So be specific to the session or to the NC as well, because that is so important. So to the vision of the session, so if the vision included that there's going to be an editorial assistant that will be in charge of social media, you could talk about how one of your goals is you want to learn more about how to make great usage of social media as part of the media team. So for that, you want to work really closely with the editorial assistant in charge of the media, social media, and you want to be in their buddy group, etc. Because that shows that you read the vision, you understand what the team will be composed of, and you want to work around that to achieve your goals.
Okay, and then to leading questions. So again, like, what is your unique selling point? Think about it, and how can you prove your unique selling point? Try to again stand out and not give them this cliche answer. Just like do some self-reflection and like think about what you can bring to the team. And how you prove it can be through like specific past experiences, for example. Doesn't have to be in EYP, it can be outside of EYP, and kind of provide some supportive arguments to those and how you can prove it based on that past experience. Also, what do you want to work on? Think about it for each application, and why specifically at this session, and why specifically with this leader. what will kind of help you work on achieving one thing. Like, for example, if you again want to be better at videography, why do you want to do it at this specific session? Kind of what will help you achieve your goal, and etc. And why, again, the vision, again, so important, but how does the vision speak to you? What do you take from the vision, and how do you apply the vision to your answer? And again, just know yourself and know your expectations. What do you expect from the team, from the session, from the role? And how are you, like, in general, like, just getting to know yourself helps you so much with the application writing. And then you are more like to be able to kind of show who you are to the panel, basically. You want
So
me?
yeah, the no-nos or don'ts ask for when you're asked about your motivation. So do not say that you're applying to the session because you want to travel to the city, or you want to travel in the city you think is really cool. No, that's not really motivation to do the session. It's motivation to like travel to the place. Um, don't give really cliche answers like I love meeting new people and making new friends and I want to see my old friends. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna go down well. It's not gonna be a good reflection of you. Again, if you're applying to a session, don't say you want to apply to a session to have fun. Just really basic answer to have fun. Maybe if you expanded on it and talked about how it relates to a goal you want to achieve or something, but again, just saying you want to have fun is not going to cut it. Um, Saying, oh, you love EYP or for the EYP spirit is again not a great answer. Um, so make sure when you're writing your motivation, you are kind of giving actual good reasons that if someone else read, they'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense why you'd be motivated to apply to the session, but just do think about it.
Yeah, and kind of like these answers, of course, are very like wholesome and whatever. Like, I'm sure everyone can relate to these answers, and that's why they don't stand out among the others. That's mainly the main point. Like, everyone, I'm sure everyone wants to have fun, so you don't really like do much with that type of answer. Um, then with personal questions, um, what they kind of are looking at, like kind of what sort of like qualities people are usually looking at in these personal questions for these specific roles. So for example, for chairing, it's good to be patient, have good time management skills, good leadership skills, be empathetic, um, want to improve your responsiveness, have if you have good writing skills, etc. There's a lot of things that fall under that umbrella, but these are maybe a few examples that are very good within the role. So if you have any of these, you can use that to your advantage. Also, organizing, same thing. It's, for example, you're good with crisis management. That's always a good one because as an organizer, you will be facing crises in one form or another. There's usually no session without any sort of crises or any sort of situation. So being able to know how to manage said crises is a very, very good skill to have. Also, being able to work under pressure, again, it kind of goes under the crisis management. Like if you are able to stay calm, that's also very good. Being flexible, again, time management, it kind of goes in a lot of different apps if you are good with time management. And again, maybe fundraising is something like role specific. But yeah, those are a few examples.
Yes, okay, so the motivational questions being specific to, say, media, creativity, style, conciseness, engagements of delegates and officials. So yeah, you can mention a creative output, as in you're applying to the session to learn something in terms of creativity at the session. So um, style as well. So maybe for the creativity and the style, you could talk about how, you've never done a videography project before and you'd really like to try a videography project, because it's a different like style of media that you've never attempted, and the creativity process is very different from infographics to videos. Conciseness. So again, it's just being concise. If you tell in the selection panel you want to do a videography project, you don't need to go on about how when you were 7 years old, your dad bought his first video camera, and ever since then you've been obsessed with the ideas of videos. You can just mention that, look, you've wanted to do a video project for a long time and you've just never found the right opportunity, and you think this will be the right opportunity for you to do it. That is perfectly fine. No selection panel will think that that is too long of an answer, so you are okay there. Um, and again, engagement of delegates and officials. So when you're saying it, you could mention how the video project will relate to both delegates and officials, and it will be a really nice project. Mention your creative process, your past projects, etc. So mention like how you come up with an idea. So you could talk about the brainstorming process, or like what goes into creating your final project. And you could talk about your past projects as well. So you could talk about maybe at a different session, one of the first projects you did was a podcast, and kind of how you thought of this idea of a podcast and how you can take these skills within the thought process along you in the future to this session. For VPing or during, you could talk about observational skills, training skills, leadership skills. Again, those are all really good because for a VP, you might need to lead buddy groups. And if you talk about your leadership skills and you can show you're reliable and you're responsible within leading a team, that would be amazing. Speaking to a group as a jury or VP, you would need to speak to bigger groups. Reflecting on EYP methods and styles. So yeah, you could talk about maybe for a VP app, you could talk about when you were chair, all the different chairing styles you had done. And even as a jury, you could talk about that to show that you understand how those chairing styles relate to the delegates as a jury and how it could affect their performance, etc. Conveying knowledge in a structured and engaging manner. So yeah, so it's really important to show your knowledge and to show that, look, you know what you're talking about, but obviously you want to do it in a structured manner to get the point across best. Um, Wanting to self-develop and help others, that's a really great point. Always mention kind of peer learning, self-development, especially if it's in the vision, it would be really nice to mention all that point. But helping others is great because as a VP, you're helping the chairs develop, and as a jury, you're helping the delegates develop. So it's always nice to mention those points.
And again, kind of generally speaking, kind of again, some universal good to have skills. I mentioned this already, but time management usually goes under kind of every role. If you're good with that, based like for sure mention it. Also, good communication skills, having a good work ethic, being responsible, reliable, being open-minded, um, kind of caring about the team spirit, um, being conscious of the welfare of other participants or your team members, um, and having good vibes. I mean, not phrasing it like that, but still, and also being eager to learn and improve. Especially this last point about being eager to learn and improve, and talk about what you want to learn and what you want to improve is always very good because usually team leaders are looking for people who want to grow, who want to develop, and who have a purpose of joining a session. So that is always a good thing to kind of bring up. Also, don't be scared to talk about your past experiences. They can be both bad and good. Like if you have a bad experience with something in the past, for example, oh, me and my co-chair weren't that good with communicating last time. So this time I would like to do this and this to prevent that, etc. But again, here, don't only mention that experience for nothing. Elaborate on it a bit more. Um, and what you want to do with that and what you want to take away from it and how you want to kind of improve or have a better experience or how you want to bring a good experience to a session or a good practice. Also, you can talk about your non-EYP experience. I mean, especially when you're applying to a role for the first time, you can definitely bring up outside of EYP perspectives into your app, and that's all fine. Also, learn how to talk about your weaknesses. I mentioned this earlier, but again, be honest with your weaknesses, um, and know yourself, but also kind of talk about how you want to um, work on maybe making those weaknesses like kind of go away, or like how you want to work on getting better in those areas, and how your team basically can support you in this development is also good to mention. Um, Also, again, like add in which ways you will be working on during the session. Don't just mention that, oh, I'm bad at time management, and leave it as that. Maybe just mention that you're bad at it and you want to get better at it by doing this and this, and so on.
So now, why this session? So think about why you're applying for this specific session. So the vision is the most important part when you're thinking about it. So read the vision. Does the vision relate to you? Do you want to work in that kind of environment? Are you interested in the vision? So for media vision, again, it could mention that they want a lot of social media people. And if you're someone who really you don't like social media, you don't know what you're doing, maybe the session isn't for you, which is perfectly fine. There are so many other sessions out there. So really just make sure that you're engaged by the vision. Because the session's format duration is suitable for XY. So maybe it's going to be a 7-day session, and you're like, "This is perfect. I've always wanted to do like a big media project on session video, but I've always found that 2-day sessions or 3-day sessions they don't give me the time to make this." So maybe the session's format or duration is suitable for you because it's a good opportunity for you to do whatever. Maybe the editor is super experienced in physical media and you've only done digital media and you really want to learn more about physical media. So maybe it's a good opportunity for you to learn about physical media. And because of the higher national diversity, so yeah, maybe you want to do the session because to bring in the diversity of the session, which is perfectly fine, because you think this and that skill is best to have and to hone at this level and not at other levels. So maybe it's a regional session and you're like, I really want to try something new. And look, if it fails, it fails. But I think if it works, it could go really well. And you just want to try it out at this session and you think, it's much better to, do some experimentation at a regional session than at an IS, because an IS is more where everything has been perfected and it's done there. So you might think, I'm only going to give this a go here because of the session is original.
Here, I would also like to add that, for example, you can also use this. You can use your inexperience to your advantage sometimes with this. When I applied as a head organizer for the first time, I had zero organizer experience. And there I talked about, because I was kind of worried that they would be like, oh yeah, not selecting me just because I had no org experience. So in my application with my co-head organizer, I talked about why I would rather head organize than organize, and what skills would be able to hone as a head organizer compared to an organizer. And that went out, like that worked super well. So you can do that as well. Last but not least, always copy the questions into a Word or Google document and work there. Please don't work on the members platform. Your answers can disappear at any time. They won't save, so it's not a good idea to work there. And it's kind of annoying in general. It doesn't really, for me at least, it's not really super intuitive. So just like copy the questions into, for example, a Google document and work on there. That is much better, and you will have much more time to come back to the document and work on it kind of bit by bit. Also, take your time to think about the questions and how you're going to answer them. Again, like, sure, you can do a last minute app, but try not to. Like, if you can start earlier, even like doing it little by little, that's always better because you will have time in between to kind of reflect and let those ideas marinate type of thing. And you can have those questions in mind and you are like unconsciously thinking about them, and then maybe right before you are going to sleep, you're like, oh my God, I need to write that in the app. So just like taking that time to kind of think about them. And again, having those few key points that you're gonna like answer the question with. And again, make sure that you have enough time to write it, and make sure that whatever vision you have for your app, um, you can execute that in the time that you give yourself. I mean, as long as you have this, it's like okay to send a last minute app because you will get everything that you want to get in your app. Um, but yeah, I mean, you can like work on it for a longer time and even send it last minute, but maybe don't start with it an hour before if like possible. Also, don't be discouraged if you get rejected. Like this is a huge one. Like whenever people like reject you, it's like rarely ever anything personal. Um, it's usually just a combination of a lot of things. So it might not always be that, oh yeah, your app wasn't good or anything like that. It might be that um, maybe you don't have an evaluation in this role, and people might be a bit unsure about how you work with that role before, or it might be that they want to have like more diversity in the team in terms of like national diversity, gender balance, everything. And that might be a reason they don't take you and they take someone else, maybe a bit less experienced, but they still want that diversity. Um, yeah, there's basically just a lot of moving factors, and it's like usually team leaders have a specific vision for what type of team they want to create, and they want different types of people in the team. They don't want a team of 10 people who are all the same. They have the same skill sets, they have the same strengths and weaknesses, and they are just copies of each other, because that's not going to make the team, like the cohesion of the team, that good. So it might be just like that as well. Like there are a lot of very similar apps, and you have to look at the very details to kind of select someone. So there's a lot of thought that goes into selection panels and selecting apps. So don't be discouraged. It's not like you being a bad person or anything like that. Um, and there's always sessions that you can apply to in the future. It's not like your EYP career is like destroyed after getting rejected. Like sessions will always come and opportunities will always arise. So that would be kind of my main message with this. Um, and now, do you have any questions? You can ask them in English. It doesn't have to be in Spanish. Okay, I think I will take that as a no.